F is for fast. E is for exciting and exotic. R is for red. And R again is for racing. Are you getting it yet? A is for amazing, aerodynamics and acceleration. And R again is for rosso. And then finally I is for Italian. If you haven't got it yet, you're definitely a sad case. I'm here today at Gawsworth Hall to peruse two wonderful Ferraris. Just look and listen to these. The 1962 250 GTO and the F355. Are they cars that live up to the legend? So guys, thanks very much for bringing these two wonderful cars along today. David, this is the Ferrari 355, commonly acknowledged to be one of the best Ferraris that's been built for some time. Is that justified?
I think so, yes. It's a lot better than its predecessor, and it marks a return to the values that we were used to in Ferraris in days gone by. It's using the 5-valve cylinder heads that they used in Formula 1 until the middle of last season, and we've also got 6 gears to make the best use of the power.
So, really, there's only one thing for it. You better give me the keys and let me have a go.
Enjoy yourself.
Thanks very much. I've always wanted a set of Ferrari keys. The 355 may not be the classic that the GTO is, with its tremendous racing pedigree. The one thing that really tells you that it's a Ferrari is the engine behind me, the 3.5-litre V8 pushing out some 390 horsepower. It doesn't really have any vices, particularly mid-corner, which a lot of cars in its class seem to suffer with one or two problems. But if there's one thing I don't like though, it's the interior finish. Whilst the leather's quite nice, I hate the colour. But like all Ferraris, you really have to rev it. You really have to use it on the open road. It's not a shopping car, that's for sure. So Stephen, with cars like this, why on earth do you want to own a Ferrari built in 1962?
Simply this. It's the finest old 1962 12-cylinder motor car that's ever been made by Ferrari. It won more races than anything you can imagine, and really the whole heritage of Ferraris come from the 250 GT, and this is a 250 GTO. The engine is unbreakable at 8,000 revs per minute.
I think we better look at this engine.
It's a 300 horsepower V12 dry sumped engine. The centre of gravity is below the height of your knees, which gives it its exceptional stability. I must say that every time I get in the car, it makes me feel 30 years younger.
Well, I fancy trying a bit of that myself, so we better have a little drive. The first thing that strikes you about this car is its complete lack of creature comforts, but that's not surprising considering the car is as old as it is, built in the 1960s. But having said that, it's got all that wonderful feel that a race-bred car, road car, should have. You feel every bump in the road. The one problem really is the question of conversation. You can't have a lot of it in this car, because as you can hear, it really is quite noisy. But there's one phrase to sum it all up, is bella macchina. A beautiful, beautiful car. It took all my skill as a smooth-talking racing driver to persuade these guys to let me take their cars off the road and onto the racetrack, where hopefully there are no milk floats. As on the road, you really have to work this engine hard, but round here it's a real joy as you never get below that dreaded 4,000 revs. On the track, its age begins to slip away, so you can try to use the car to its proper limit, although you'll never reach the top speed of 170 miles an hour on a circuit like this. But who cares? This is absolutely brilliant. This is one of only 32 cars ever built. In its heyday in the 60s, this car was a Cobra and an E-Type eater, and it had some great battles. In fact, it ended its career rather ingloriously when it was taken out by a milk float between stages on the Tour de France in 1964. This car is an absolute masterpiece. It's a work of art. It was built by Scaglietti, who must have been a pupil of somebody like Michelangelo. Just look at that bonnet as it falls away from you, and you can see those wonderful bulges, hiding, of course, the pièce de résistance, the V12 engine. And it just shows the racing pedigree of this car, which is now some 32 years old. If you can stand the high-pitched scream, it will actually rev to 8,500 revs, and a V12, even of this vintage, sounds absolutely wonderful. It's exactly as a race car should be. So much for the GTO. Let's take a time warp and see what Ferrari have pulled out of the hat for 1995. This car is really beginning to show its racing pedigree. It's an excellent chassis. One penalty of the traditional Ferrari gearbox is that it can be a little bit slow, and at times you can miss shift, so you have to take great care. In fact, the 0 to 60 time of 4.7 seconds is fairly impressive, and the top speed of 183 miles an hour is something we certainly won't reach today at Oulton Park. There's just one question you would probably like to ask, is how much these cars are worth. The 355 is worth about £84,000, but the GTO, this car, is worth something in the order of a cool 10 billion lira. That's £4 million to you. I mean, it is a classic after all, like an old master painting, for example. But unlike a painting, you can actually drive this car and enjoy it. But the trouble is, there might be a milk float round the corner.